Hey everyone and welcome. In this video we look at an article in the Independent regarding Priti Patel and the grooming gang report. It's titled, Grooming Gang Characteristics Research to be Published After Government U-Turn.
And I do believe that we have rotten politics, and I'm not using that as an exaggeration. Rotten politics in this country at the moment.
Now at this point, it's still just words, and I'm sick of words. Actions is what I want. We have a right to keep our children safe and a duty to do so, in my opinion. Before we read, I'd like to give a huge thank you to the Independent for championing this. I do appreciate it from them. And all the people who signed the petition. 126,000 we got to. And finally to all the victims that have spoken out or not. We will get justice, I promise you. Thank you, every single one of you. Let's read. What happened to these children remains one of the biggest stains on our country's conscience, Priti Patel says. Research on the characteristics of grooming gangs is to be published by the government following a U-turn. In response to a Freedom of Information request by the Independent, the Home Office previously said releasing the paper would not be in the public's interest in February. The response sparked a government petition that has so far been signed by almost 126,000 people, demanding the release of the official research on grooming gangs undertaken by the government in full. In its initial reply, the government said the work announced by Sajid Javid in 2018 was internal and would inform an upcoming strategy on CSA. But on Tuesday, the Home Office announced that it would publish a paper into group-based CSE in order to better understand the characteristics of group-based offending and help deliver justice for victims. Same again though, isn't it? I mean, it's just words again. Hopefully they're going to follow through on this one now. Work was commissioned by the previous Home Secretary to better understand the scale and nature of group-based child exploitation, including the characteristics of offenders, victims, and the context in which these crimes are committed, a spokesperson added. And I think that's vital. We need to be able to give our children advice on how to protect themselves as well as we protect them, don't we? This is pertinent information in my opinion. The Independent understands that the format of the document to be published later this year has not yet been decided. An external reference group of experts, I'd like to know who these experts are, Priti, is to be established to review the research before its publication. I have a sneaky suspicion who that would be. Priti Patel, who has met with survivors and the National Crime Agency on the issue, said, victims of these sickening child abuse groups have told me how they were let down by the state in the name of political correctness. We've seen numerous evidence of just that thing, haven't we? What happened to these children remains one of the biggest stains on our country's conscience. It is shameful, and yet you still tried to hide it. See, this is why I think it's just words at the minute. I don't care what they say, to be honest. I need to see action, not we will do it, I promise you, sometime in the near future, maybe later on in the year, possibly, if you've been good. You see where I'm going? I am determined to deliver justice for victims and ensure something like this can never happen again. Well, apparently, the Independent are saying 19,000 every single year are still being groomed. So you're not doing a very good job, are you? Child exploitation will be discussed by government, law enforcement and charity officials at a virtual Hidden Harms Summit on Thursday. The announcement was made on the deadline set by a parliamentary committee considering whether to hold a House of Commons debate on why the research had not been released. Earlier this month, the Petitions Committee told the Home Office to issue a revised response to the petition by the 20th of May because the original reply had not directly addressed the request. And that mainly down to people that complained to the petitions committee because of them refusing to release it. Same again, we thank you for that as well, everyone, if you were one of those people. This should clearly state whether the government will publish its research into the characteristics of group-based child exploitation committee Chair Catherine McKinnell said. She added that the Petitions Committee had received a significant volume of correspondence complaining about the government's response. Mr. Javid first promised the review in July 2018, pledging that there would be no-go areas of inquiry, and yet they still tried to hide it. Makes you wonder what's in it. Now, even if they do release it, it's not going to be everything, is it? I mean, they're going to cherry pick this to death. So, I very much doubt it's going to give us any information whatsoever that we don't already know. But it is a first run of the ladder, is it not, to getting it fully open so that we can get complete justice for these girls? Because it needs to be done, in my opinion. It is an absolute shame of this on this country. But what say you? Do you think this is going to be the full report being released? Do you think it's going to be redacted and there's only going to be like 3 or 4 words on it? I know I'm being hyperbolic and I'm going overboard, but the past tells me that they don't want this out there. As Home Secretary, he said that abusers convicted in high-profile cases had been disproportionately from Pakistani background, adding, "I will not let cultural or political sensitivities get in the way of understanding the problem and doing something about it." And yet they're still trying to hide it. Do you think if we hadn't done the petition and the Independent hadn't put the articles out that they did, and all the people complaining to the petitions committee, do you think if we hadn't done that, we would ever find out? Do you? Because I don't. And in fact, I pretty much know we wouldn't. They'd continue to sweep it under the carpet forever. Mr. Javid spoke about the ongoing work several times, but the Home Office made no further announcements after he moved to the Treasurer. In its response to the petition, the government said it had completed a review of existing literature, spoken to investigators and safeguarding professionals to better understand the offenders and victims of grooming gangs. Survivors of child exploitation in Rotherham said they believed the research was going to be made public and accused the government of making empty promises. And I backed them on that. It was an empty promise. And for them to then say, oh, well, it's not in the public interest, proved it was an empty promise, did it not? And this is an empty promise still, until we see this report and we see that it's not been redacted. If it has been redacted like I expect it's going to be, it's not anything other than another empty promise, is it not? Sarah Champion, thank you, Sarah, we appreciate your work. The Labour MP for Rotherham and the former Chief Prosecutor who initiated charges against the grooming gang in Rochdale were among those demanding its release. In response to the Independent's original FOI request, Home Office officials said they had applied a public interest test, but the information was exempt from the FOI Act because it could be used for government policy and included operationally sensitive information from police. The information could be misleading if made public and used out of context, the letter added. See, that just tells me that I was right. They're going to redact the crap out of this. We're not going to find out anything here other than they were Pakistani men. Well, we already knew that, mostly. We recognise that this topic in general and any insight and learning are matters of strong public interest, although it does not necessarily follow that it is in the public interest to disclose any specific information relating to it. And what about public interest so that we can protect our families? Is that not something that is in the public's interest? How dare you? How bloody dare you? Now, what's my opinion on this? Like I said earlier on, it's empty promises still. It's words and words and words with words attached with words coming out of the words. You know, that sort of thing. Until there is an action, it's just bluster, in my opinion. But what say you? Do you think that this is promising? Do you think that they can't get out of it now? I think they can. I think they'll just redact it. I think they'll cherry pick certain bits that we pretty much already know anyway. I think they'll try and remove everything in regards to themselves, so there's nothing that points the finger at any of the authorities or the care workers or the social workers or any of them that aided and abetted this. None of those will be highlighted at all. It'll just be about the people doing it, which is fair enough. It's a start. Like I say, you got to think it's the first run of the ladder, isn't it, to complete justice. We will get complete justice, but we need to continue to shout it from the rooftops and not let them brush it under the carpet again. We have a duty to it at this point. But what say you? Let me know in the comments, everyone. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one.